Molweni, my name is Uanga Mbeia and I am from South Africa. I stay in the coastline of Gqeberha, and my love for seaweed started when I had the opportunity to study about it in Sweden, Gothenburg University.
I live between Paris and Brittany in France. Brittany is the west coast of France and probably the most complete seaweed ecosystem in the country.
Seaweed is actually part of our daily life in China. My favorite seaweed is kelp. I am a seaweed ambassador for an organization called Safe Seaweed Coalition.
The coalition is a partnership that supports the safe and sustainable scaling up of the global seaweed industry.
I do believe in the absolute need of a program of advocacy based on dialogue and communication towards these various stakeholders and communities.
I'm a graduate student at the University of Victoria in the Spectral Lab, where we map and monitor bull kelp using remote sensing.
What piqued my interest the most was the fact that seaweed grows very fast, and through photosynthesis, it absorbs carbon dioxide at a phenomenal rate. Now, this process, also known as carbon sequestration, could be our answer to global warming and to mitigating the effects of climate change.
And again, we want to move this industry forward.
I really think seaweed has the potential to not just help our ecosystems and biodiversities in the ocean, but also to help the communities along these coastlines. I'm really hoping that seaweed can provide quality, sustainable jobs.
I've discovered a special formula to transform seaweed into a pliable material to create fashion and home decor products.
I like to draw parallels between land-based agricultural systems that I'm familiar with and the seaweed industry that's developing and growing.
So I think it's really important that we have a lot of people talking and thinking about kelp, how to monitor it, how to restore it, and just really recognizing the importance of our kelp forest.
Well, I kind of came up with the saying, whatever the question is, seaweed is the answer, and that's not exaggerating. From food to biofuels to bioplastic to biofiber.
And I eat it, I dry it, and I put it in all my dishes.
I love to tell others about seaweed because it holds so much promise to support our global food systems and sustainability more broadly.
My advice to anyone wanting to know about seaweed is get involved, be a part of it, be a part of this amazing industry.
Because of all this and more, I'm driven to spread the word about the multifaceted treasure trove that seaweed is.
It's a powerhouse that can contribute significantly to many of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
I hope you will learn more of seaweed during Seaweed Days.
And I hope you'll join me in the seaweed revolution.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next seaweed session during the second season of Seaweed Days. I'm so excited to see so many people here with us this afternoon. And I'm really excited just about Seaweed Days in general. Everything is going really well. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes for your support making this Seaweed Days come to life. My name is Erin. I'm the Manager of Communications and Engagement here at Cascadia Seaweed, and we are the organization hosting Seaweed Days. And we have a very special announcement during today's session. If you are a resident of British Columbia and you are with us at the end of this session, then you are eligible to win a gift value over $250. Yay! So to be eligible, you need to send me, Erin Bremner, the host of this session, a direct message with your name and your email address. And that's how I will do the draw at the end of the session. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Krista from Vancity. Krista and Vancity have been supporters of Seaweed Days for both seasons of Seaweed Days. And I'm so grateful for Krista's enthusiasm for the seaweed sector and us in general. And she's also just a lovely human being to work with. So I'm going to turn it over to Krista and the Seaforestation panel.
Great, thanks so much, Erin. Yes, hi everyone, my name is Krista Lowen and I'm calling in today from the unceded and traditional territories of the Syilx Okanagan peoples in Kelowna, BC. So I thank them for their stewardship of these lands since time immemorial. And I'd also welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat and acknowledge the territory that you're calling in from. And on that note, we're also asking everyone to please keep your cameras off during the session today, and we will welcome you to use the chat during our session to ask any questions of our panelists. There will be a short Q&A portion of our session in the last couple of minutes of our session today, but I'll also be monitoring the chat throughout if we have any burning questions that kind of fit within the flow of the session today. Okay. And so we did have, originally we had a poll to see where everybody is coming from today. We don't have that now, but I just, something we were curious about is how many people in the room are coming from businesses, either in the seaweed sector, or if you're a business that's interested in using seaforestation as part of your social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. Yeah, if you'd like to pop that in the chat, we're open to receiving that in that format as well. And also we're curious how many, just kind of general seaweed lovers and consumers of seaweed we have in the room. So if you're open to using the chat, letting us know who's in the room, also that will help us kind of tailor the conversation as well, and focus on different areas of seaforestation as it relates to you and what you're looking to get out of the session today. But in that regard, I will just start by introducing myself a little more formally in the context of where I work as a community investment associate at Vancity. And Vancity is Canada's largest community credit union, serving over 500,000 members in Southwest BC. And at Vancity, our vision is a transformed economy that protects the earth and guarantees equity for all. So we offer financial products and expert advice to help with current and future challenges. And we've always been at the forefront of social and environmental justice. For instance, we were the first financial institution in Canada to offer loans to women without a male cosigner. And we were the first financial institution to become carbon neutral back in 2008. And what sets us apart as a financial institution really is, I think, the fact that we, in addition to our values and being owned by our members, we also invest 30% of our profits back into the local communities where our members live and work. And these funds are allocated mostly through my team and community investment. And, the more members that use our services, the more profits we're able to generate, which then means we have even more capital to invest back into community. So we provide grants that share our vision, to organizations that share our vision of a transformed economy that aligns people and planet. And in many cases, we take a systemic approach by investing in organizations, in industries, in institutions, and advocacy groups. And so the seaweed sector is an area that we've been focusing on for a number of years, given the potential for economic reconciliation with coastal First Nations, carbon sequestration, improved ecosystem services, and the many other benefits of this sector that you've all been learning about over the last few days, and I'm sure in previous to Seaweed Days as well. And so this is why we're proud to be a sponsor of Seaweed Days, and we look forward to continued learning about how we as a financial institution can better support this sector. And it's my pleasure to host this session today on the topic of seaforestation. So with that, I'll ask the panelists to turn on their cameras. And today we have with us Lasse Gustafsson, President and CEO of Oceanwise, Lauren Cousins, founder of EcoChit, and Stephen Emsley, founder of Veritree. So we're going to start off today by having each of our panelists go around and introduce themselves and let us know how their work is aligned with seaforestation and what that looks like for them. And so I will start with Lauren. And yes, I'll start with Lauren, and we'll come back at the end of this and we will have Lasse will do an explanation about Seaforestation as well. So go ahead, Lauren.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Cousins, and I am the co-founder of EcoChit, eco-friendly receipt paper. And we are on a mission to help save our planet. Our eco-friendly receipts are designed to help create awareness about climate solutions while giving businesses a simple way to support them. This is done through a unique custom print, which is featured on the back of every EcoChit receipt. And through verified partnerships, we have created a model that enables each case of EcoChit sold to help regenerate critical ecosystems. In 2018, EcoChit introduced the receipt paper that helps plant trees. And this year, in celebration of World Ocean Month, we are so excited to introduce our newest product line, which is in support of the Oceanwise Seaforestation program. This product is now available at ecochit.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pass it on to Stephen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen. I'm the co-founder of Tentree and Veritree. And at Veritree, we created Veritree out of the necessity at Tentree to actually verify all of the tree planting activities that we've been a part of over the past decade. And what this does, it helps to draw more funds and attention to the projects that are doing good work around the world, whether it's a reforestation project on land or a seaforestation project in the ocean. So we're very excited to be newly working with Oceanwise on some of the green gravel kelp restoration that's been happening, and it's been an amazing experience so far. So yeah, looking forward to chatting with everyone today.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here, Stephen. And Lasse?
Thank you so much, Krista. I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish, also known as Vancouver. I'm a lifetime environmentalist, and as you can hear on my funny accent and you see my name, I'm not a true born Canadian. I came to Canada 3 years ago. Thanks so much for having me on the panel today. I really appreciate it. I'm the president and CEO of Oceanwise, and Oceanwise is going through rapid change, which is a good thing. But I want to give you a few pointers of where we are today. So we're a global conservation organization on a mission to protect and restore the world's ocean. We have research ambitions, educational programs, direct action conservation, and field projects. And our purpose is to inspire and empower communities around the world, but obviously here in Canada, to take action for ocean health. We focused on three major challenges that facing the ocean: overfishing, ocean pollution, and climate change. We're headquartered in Vancouver. We have an office in Gastown. We have staff across Canada, and quite recently we just hired our first employee in Mexico and our first employee in Chile. So we're Canada Plus by now, which is awesome. Participants in our conservation programs, our online education program, comes from all over the world. We are solutions oriented. We're focusing on knowledge and turning knowledge into action. We have a large team of scientists and researchers working hard to find solutions. We're solutions oriented. And we're looking at solutions that can be scaled and implemented on it, matching the challenges we're facing as ocean protectors. We also have the benefit to work in close partnership with a number of indigenous groups, which allow us to benefit not only from the Western science and the knowledge that we produce in universities, but also from the traditional knowledge of different indigenous groups that we work in partnership with. And obviously knowledge is really important, but knowledge alone does not drive change. So we are trying, as I said, to inspire and empower people to take action. I'm Swedish. Last week, there was a big United Nations conference in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, celebrating 50 years about talking about the environment. Nothing wrong with dialogue, obviously, but it's clearly not enough. So we are underlining and pushing really hard that it's now time to turn knowledge into action. And we're always looking for collaborations. We collaborate with many groups, many individuals, but if anybody on the Zoom conference today think they have anything to add, they want to collaborate, please don't hesitate to reach out. That'd be great. I'll say a few words about Seaforestation if you want, Krista.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a great time to talk about Seaforestation and also who can get involved in the initiative as well.
Yeah, so can you see this book? No. So 2017, I'm a lifetime environmentalist. I work with ocean issues. I work with tiger conservation. I work with climate change. I have a special passion for the interface between oceans and climate. And 2017, I read a book by an Australian professor called Sunlight and Seaweed. And if you haven't read it, I think you should. It's a really interesting book because it comes from a place of deep despair, basically saying we're so far down the road of environmental destruction, so every solution now needs to solve at least 3 problems. And that's how I found kelp. And I started to study kelp, and as I learned relatively quick, kelp is a super solution to many problems that we're facing on the planet. Climate change, ocean acidification, biodiversity loss. It can even help address food security. So when I came to Canada a couple of years ago, I brought Seaforestation with me as a concept, and I made it a priority for Oceanwise, and it's been a priority since. And we're currently now, let me say what we believe Seaforestation is. It's planting, restoring, managing, and caring for underwater seaweed forests. And we have become relatively quick one of the world leading organizations in advancing seaforestation, both in terms of research and action. And the next couple of years, our ambition is to plant 5,000 hectares of kelp with our partners. And this would be, and I'm coming to kelp from a climate perspective. There are many other dimensions, but from a climate perspective, 5,000 hectares of kelp would offset the equivalent of 3,000 New Yorkers or 62,500 Kenyans. It would occupy the equivalent of Manhattan, and currently the largest kelp farm is about 4,000 hectares. So 5,000 hectares is sort of upping the bar a little bit. We're a practical organization. We like to talk about what we do, but not because we like to talk about, because we've done some stuff. So one of the things we're doing here together with Canadian Kelp Resources on Vancouver Island is a project called Green Gravel. We're trying a new way to plant kelp by attaching a little kelp plant to a pebble, and then you locate that in a strategic location. And we're currently trying to follow up on the things that we did last year in Rainy Bay on Vancouver Island. We're also looking at restoring kelp and planting kelp on a large scale in Chile in South America, again in partnership with indigenous groups and the local governments. We do this because of climate, but also because kelp and seaweed forests are amazing habitats for fish, for here in Canada, for otters, and for all sorts of amazing wildlife. It's a great home. But it is carbon plus, because unlike many other offset tactics, if you like, it doesn't stop growing. So if you have and I'm only in favor of planting forest. We should plant as much forest as we can do in a responsible way. But trees stop growing. Kelp forests don't. Also, trees unfortunately burn. Kelp forests don't. So in that sense, it's already a solutions plus, a carbon plus. Plus, it also provides economic opportunities for indigenous and coastal communities. And our focus is to be in the midst of the web. We try to be the connector between everybody, but also the group that is holding keeping a really strong focus on the environmental returns, because you can see we've been offered to sell carbon offsets already, and it's way too early, because this is cutting edge. It's new. We don't know enough. There are no systems in place for carbon offsets, but we still already have offers. Can we buy carbon offsets from you? And we want to make sure that we do this right in a responsible manner, as fast as we possibly can, because it's urgent, but in a responsible manner. And we as a conservation organization, we're focusing on the environmental return as well as the climate return. And as I said, and I wrap it up here, Anybody who have any thoughts about how we can take this to scale, please reach out to me or to anybody else at Oceanwise, because we're extreme collaborators. We love working with others, including everybody on this panel. We already work with all of you, and that's the way it needs to be.
That's great. Thanks, Lasse. And I think at this point, I think it makes a lot of sense for Stephen then to speak to how Veritree is working with Oceanwise in order to kind of validate some of the seaforestation projects that are happening on the ground or in the waters. And then from there, we'll hear from Lauren about her experience working with Veritree in her business as well.
Yeah, sure. So what we always try and do is we're technically a technology company, and what we want to do is make sure that we're not just adding a technology layer to something that doesn't actually need it, or that's going to actually cause more issues or problems in the process. And we only want to help things advance and help the transparency side of good work that's being done, as I mentioned before. And part of that, there's a lot of activities and there's a lot of planting projects going on around the world, and I'm not saying that some are bad and some are good. There's just different ways that I think attention to detail that needs to be taken place in order to accurately vet those projects. And when you're committing dollars to those and your investment in time and resources from your company or as an individual, you really want to know that you're investing in those projects that are going to have the best chance of success. But not just success in the terms of, hey, our green gravel is growing or our kelp or our trees are growing, but hey, we learned from whatever mistakes or positive outcomes there were from that project, and you have that baseline and you know how to evaluate it into the future, and then you can communicate that clearly over time. So what we try and do with the partners that we work with is understand from the experts on the ground, what are the correct monitoring, reporting, and verification pieces of that project. And with kelp, it's a whole new ball game. We're used to these terrestrial sites where we go to a typical nursery and then the saplings are transported to the planting site, and it's just a standard monitoring approach. With this, it's a whole new game. And what we're trying to do is, if we can verify that the work that's being done is taking place in that area, that the proper scientific methods are being put in place and followed up on, and that we're not just going and planting an area and then forgetting about it because there's a new area that is more attractive to plant in because of its geographic location or whatever. We're just trying not to jump to the new shiny object. If we can make sure that we're able to help people invest in the long-term success and sustainability of a project, that mostly, like, the key thing that I want to say, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I think the most important piece to all of these projects when it comes to verifying the credibility is the local community involvement. So how do we make sure that whatever is going on at that project, that the local communities are benefiting from it? Because we have to look at the drivers of degradation in a kelp project. I mean, there are people on this call, I know, that can speak to this a lot better than I can in regards to kelp, but the drivers of why did the kelp or that area become deforested in the first place, and why are we restoring it, or why is there a desire to restore it? These are all pieces that lead into the impacts associated with a kelp project. So CO2 may be one impact aspect, but there are many impacts related to the water quality, the biodiversity, that are super important. And I think the more that we can draw attention to those impacts, the more we're going to be able to reforest or to contribute to these seaforestation projects on a massive scale. Because if we just focus on carbon and we get this carbon tunnel vision, then we're going to miss out on the vast opportunities there are to have a much greater impact.
Absolutely, Stephen. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Looking at the benefits of a seaforestation project in a much more holistic way, as opposed to zeroing out on carbon. While that is important, and it will be important when the time is right to get into those carbon markets, but to take the time and to really do that well, that's a great point, Stephen. And yeah, I'd love to pass it on to Lauren to get a sense from you about, first, I would say maybe like the motivation for your organization to be working with Veritree, and then what the process has looked like. I know you've worked for a while specifically on the reforestation, and what's it look like for you now that you're transitioning into also supporting seaforestation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I can take you through the evolution of kind of where EcoChit began. So I've been working in the paper industry for the last 12 years, supplying point of sale supplies to businesses. So that would be their receipt paper, whether it be a restaurant or a retail location. And in 2018, we wanted to create a type of receipt paper that was better for people and the planet. Standard receipt paper, as many people don't know, it comes with several challenges. And the center of that is these chemicals called BPA and BPS, which are found in the coating on thermal receipt paper. These chemicals are harmful to human health, which also makes standard receipt paper, unfortunately, not recyclable. So step one for us was to make a safer receipt, making it 100% phenol-free, which makes our paper recyclable as well. Now, because you can't tell the difference between standard receipt paper and paper that is 100% phenol-free, we thought that it was really important to custom print the back of our receipts with that information. But we wanted to go a step further. And so we created the receipt paper that helps plant trees. And we partnered with a reforestation partner to basically plant trees for every case of EcoChit sold. Now, what we realized when we created this product is how much we were able to highlight trees as a natural climate solution. And we saw more and more businesses jump on board. All of a sudden, you see corporations that are now planting millions of trees. And we thought, this is really amazing. So how do we expand on that message? We know that trees are not the only natural climate solution that are out there. And so that's when we turned over to Seaforestation and we said, let's give businesses a way to support an ocean-based climate solution and shine light on the power of kelp. So my job has really been reaching out to businesses to let them know about kelp and why they should be supporting seaforestation, take into consideration a restaurant that has seafood on the menu that relies on the ocean for the sustainability of their business. Our products, they're a turnkey solution to just give back and ensure the sustainability of their business in the long term. So I actually have a sample of what it looks like right here. So for customers that are wanting to take a deeper dive into the sustainability of our receipts, they can actually scan the QR code, which is listed on the back. This one will take you to an information page about what seaforestation is and the benefits of it. And then our Veritree one has a QR code on the back, which actually takes you to the Veritree platform. It's a digital forest where customers are able to see the types of trees that we're planting, the impact that they're having, the location. So that's something which we're really grateful from Veritree to be able to have that transparency throughout the process.
That's great. Yeah, thanks so much, Lauren, for walking us through that and the rationale for your business. And I think maybe a follow-up question for you, Lauren, is what has been the response from businesses that you're engaging with on the topic of seaforestation, and is your receipt paper being one option for them to get involved? Are they curious about other ways that they can get involved as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things is that oftentimes receipt paper is overlooked because, again, people just, they think that it's a recyclable product. And so, that they don't need to shift to anything different. But they've really been liking it in the sense that every single customer that receives an EcoChit receipt, they can see right there that they're supporting a sustainability initiative. And that's what a lot of businesses are looking for these days, is ways to increase their corporate social responsibility. It's forward facing. It's not just, hidden in the back on their website. So yeah, customers have really, really been loving it. And now that we've introduced the ocean-based climate solution that really aligns with a lot of brands, they've really been taking well to it. So yeah, we are so excited to have launched this just in time for World Ocean Month.
That's wonderful. So great. And I guess I would ask a similar question of you, Stephen, like what has been the response from your customer base around, having seaforestation as an option for their kind of social responsibility purposes, giving back, however you want to frame it?
Yeah, I would say something very similar is now that we have it as an option and people understand that. I think it was, honestly, I'll have to credit the Netflix documentary, My Octopus Teacher. But once that came out, it was nonstop. People were asking us about it, and at that point, I think we had already been speaking with Oceanwise about all of this. So it was super exciting to see. Sometimes it just takes something like that to hit the mainstream for people to understand that, hey, there are forests under the water, and these need protected too, and they're in danger of all sorts of problems. So yeah, we've seen amazing interest in that in Seaforestation, and then the more that we do things like this, the more we talk about it, the more people are excited to get involved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm wondering, Stephen, if you, and then maybe perhaps Lasse as well, if you might want to comment on this. But yeah, just curious, maybe back to that piece around transparency that you had mentioned earlier, Stephen, and this importance around metrics and yeah, accountability in restoration projects. How do you go about that through your processes, and how do you ensure that you know, people that are donating to the cause of Seaforestation ensure that their dollars are going to what they hope that it would be?
Yeah, and what I've always said in this, I'll move the conversation back to trees to start with, and then I can kind of bring it back. But I've always said that everyone always says, hey, I want to contribute to planting trees. And I said, we want X amount of trees. And they said, well, we want to own this, and they keep throwing that word own in there, and I'm like, well, you don't really own the trees. You know, Mother Nature owns these trees. The local community who is living around those forests own those trees. They decide the fate of those trees. And so what's really important is to, with any of these projects, to give credit where credit is due, and to be able to list all of the participating parties in that project. And so what often happens is you'll have a project that gets reported on the impacts at, say, a world level. And then all of a sudden you have all of these other sort of half unknown participating parties all reporting this, that they're all having these impacts. And before you know it, one tree now is being reported as 100 trees worth of impact. And we think as a global effort, we're having this 100x impact. And so that's dangerous when it comes to not just carbon reporting, but also any other impact reporting that comes in the future, whether it's UN SDGs or anything like that. So what we really need to do, and my goal with all of this, is to ensure that the credit is being given where it's due, and everyone who is participating in that project is aware that there are other parties that are making this happen and helping push it forward. It's not about, hey, I want to own these 5 trees so I can own these impacts. This is about a collective shared impact to move us forward. And if we don't start to shift our mentality in that direction, it's always going to be this, I want to grab more for myself. And so I think that the biggest part of what we're trying to do is make that clear and create clear dashboards and transparent ways of showing that participation from everyone, because it helps if someone is buying or not buying, but supporting brands that are using EcoChit in their business. They can also see other businesses that are also supporting those similar projects, and it really brings the whole project up.
That's great. Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. And Lasse, do you have any thoughts also as well on some of that transparency and reporting and how that relates to the Seaforestation projects you're working on? And you're muted, Lasse, as well.
We've only done this for 3 years. Why would I know how to do that already? No, I think it's really, really important. So we're a conservation organization. We want to protect and restore the oceans. The market for us is just a tool. Of course, if you're a market player, the ocean's just a tool. As environment keeps climbing up on the agendas for private sectors and government, there is a reason for those of us who are genuinely concerned about the environment to be smart about how we welcome other players into this arena, because greenwashing is everywhere, and we would like to focus on. That's why we're so focused on getting things done on the ground before we talk about them. It's much easier. And I'll quote my mother, and she says, Lasse, don't tell everybody about your ideas in advance because they sound crazy. Once you've done it, it's done and nobody can argue. So we're trying to, and that's why I'm really interested in the work we do with Veritree to figure out how can we create concepts. They're not going to be watertight because there will always be uncertainty, but there will be, we want to make sure that we have systems that allow people to take credit in an honest way. And avoiding the kind of multi-report, the one tree gets reported 100 times. That's of no interest for us. And we need to also control ourselves because there's tons of money. This is like the Wild West for entrepreneurs. And as much as we welcome investors, we want to make sure that this is solid, sustainable, and responsible. So I think verification system is really, really important. And I think there will be voluntary markets initially, but at one point, maybe we need to look at how do we govern the markets on a national or regional level, because to avoid the greenwashing. Of course we want people who are doing real stuff to boost and brag about it. That's fine, but we don't want to have people bragging and boasting about things that they intend to do, because it may happen in the future. And that you can see that as CSR turns into ESG, it's still in many corporations part of the communications and marketing department. And then you know why they're doing it, kind of. So we're very happy. I'm super excited to see how much oceans is getting attention now compared to 10 years ago. But it's still the most underfunded of all the sustainable development goals. We're not even close to where we need to be. And that was true for the Millennium Development Goals for the environmental pillars. So we're the least prioritized of all the priorities that the world has on sustainable development. So of course we need to welcome all the interest that's here, but we don't want to fool ourselves by doing things just because all of a sudden somebody big and important comes into this space and they kickstart their propaganda machine or the marketing without maybe doing it for real. So for us, it's all about real impact before communication, because you should brag about what you've done, not what you intend to do. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that, Lasse. And I think that is in line with some comments that we're getting in the chat here, as well as around the difficulty to link any change in seawater carbon to a change in atmospheric carbon. Seawater isn't staying in one place. And also just the nuances of carbon accounting within the seaweed world, and that, it's an active area, and it's important to temper expectations at this point. So these are some comments that we're getting in the chat. So thank you, those of you that are using the chat. And also if you have any other questions, please as well. And Lauren too, I'd love to hear from you something along, you're welcome to say anything on other topics as well, but just on the same topic around transparency. And I kind of have this question around how can we trust brands? Like if a brand says, oh, we're contributing to this Seaforestation, and then me as a consumer, because I also love, seaweed, I want to support this organization. How can I trust that they are doing what they say that they're doing? And so I'd love to hear from you with some pieces from your perspective around transparency.
Absolutely. Well, I think that you really need to do your research on the brand and follow up. If they say that they are, doing something, definitely follow up and ask those hard questions and ask how are you keeping yourselves accountable? How are you following through with this? But that's really where Veritree came into place, where we wanted to, ensure that trees were being planted. I did find with other reforestation charities that transparency just wasn't there. There just wasn't enough. And so that's why we're so grateful to work with partners like Veritree and hopefully to expand that technology as well in the Oceanwise Seaforestation program as well in future, to be able to have that transparency and really be able to track the impact that you're making. But within the green space, it's really easy. As soon as a brand says that they're going to be doing one thing, as soon as they get caught not doing that thing, automatically trust is gone. So it's a very delicate thing. So yeah, my advice is just, if you are going to say you're going to do something, make sure you follow through and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're making a great point there, Lauren, that there is, though we're not currently seaweed isn't currently in like the carbon markets as it's kind of framed, there is still so many benefits. And I think, Stephen, I would love if you could speak to a little bit around the eDNA and kind of coming back full circle to, like, it's not just about the carbon, it's also about the ecosystem services that seaweed can provide and the revitalization of our waters and lands. I was wondering if you could just tell people at a high level of just a bit about like some of the tracking that's happening through Oceanwise, and maybe Lasse, you could as well. But I just found that so fascinating.
Yeah, maybe I'll let Lasse speak to the eDNA stuff, and I know that there's probably Carlos is listening too, and I don't want to butcher his amazing explanations of this kind of stuff. But what I will say about the ecosystem services, and it goes back, kind of ties into the other things I was speaking about when it comes to impacts, is if we can look at what the intended, if we can create a baseline of intended impacts of our efforts, and we can quantify them in some way and report on them on an ongoing basis, or define what that cadence is and that the length of time that we're going to report on it, then we can then we have something tangible that we can feel confident investing in. And that's why the green gravel projects, and why we were so fascinated to work with Oceanwise, is because of that attention to detail with those eDNA samples. They're doing that. It's not like, hey, can we do these things because we think they're important? They're like, no, we're way ahead of it. We know what's important, and we're already there was a thing someone said at a conference one time, where it was, the guy was giving an example of all of his things he does for marketing. And he said, someone asked a question at the end. They said, hey, if all of this stuff you're saying is legit and real information, then why are you just telling the whole audience? And he says, because we're sprinting and you'll never catch me. And I'm like, whoa. And that's what I feel that Oceanwise is doing with some of the work in these Seaforestation projects, is they're sprinting, and I'm just fascinated to follow along and watch how these areas are brought back to life. And once again, you start with those baseline results, you can see you can quantify those impacts across the board. So I guess that's the part I would say about that.
So one of the most expensive things when it comes for environmentalists is to track biodiversity, to monitor biodiversity. That's true on land, and that's even more true in the water. So environmental DNA is a relatively new science, and it's really new actually. It's not been going on for a long time. So what we are trying to do is we collect environmental DNA, which will tell us what kind of species, what kind of life do we have in this place right now. So based on the DNA, we know right now we have all this life here. And then we do 3 months later, or 6 months later, or a year later, we do the same. And over time, we will create a series. Then that series of information will prove or not that our claim that seaforestation increases biodiversity is true or not. And if it isn't true for this particular space, we need to stop claiming that it does. But if we can prove through environmental DNA that we've had an increased volume or increased diversity of marine life, that's the evidence. And that's the evidence that would be, because it's science, would be available for everybody who is a scientist who can verify. So I think that's really important, because this is us verifying ourselves with the know. We know, but we don't know for every particular place. Mm-hmm. And by collecting environmental DNA over time, we will build a data series that will allow others to trust seaforestation as well, in terms not only as a carbon remover, but also as an a tool that increases biodiversity.
That's great. Thanks so much, Lasse. And I did, one of your colleagues, Lasse, sent me the video that was created from Oceanwise on eDNA. So I've dropped that in the chat there. So go ahead and look at it. It was a great video. So I think, we are getting close to time. We've really only got about a minute left. I know we're allowed to go over time, but let's maybe try to keep it at time to the best of our ability. I'll let everyone say a couple of closing thoughts. One last thing you want to leave everyone with. I'll start with Laura, and then Stephen, and then back to Leslie, and then we will be finished with our session today.
Perfect. Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for including me on today's session. Speaking to any businesses out there, or really anybody that knows a business that they would want to see, promoting climate solutions and supporting them, please reach out to us at info@ecochit.com. And that's everything, I think. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for having me. And I would just ask that all businesses who are interested in any sort of restoration work, just to do your diligence and find the projects that have impacts that resonate with you. Try not to get too far down the carbon tunnel vision because it's what everyone says that you need to do at this point in time, because frankly, in 6 months, it might be another direction. So just find the projects that are benefiting as many of the impacts that resonate with you as possible, and then do your diligence to verify that it's actually happening so that you can feel confident to invest in the future.
Great, thanks, Stephen. Leslie?
So yeah, again, thank you. It's been great. It's really nice to engage in this kind of dialogues. I really like it. A couple of things. I've said it twice already. I'm going to say it the third time. And those of you who are marketeers know I'm not even close to the 7th time when people actually hear it for the first time. If you have an idea, if you want to get engaged, please reach out to Oceanwise. We're more than happy to collaborate if we have good ideas together. Second, be curious about kelp. There's kelp everywhere if you start looking. Not everything might be for you, but you might find things that you didn't expect would be great for you. I mean, there's kelp almost everywhere. So be curious. And of course, I have to promote ocean.org, the best URL in the world if you care about the oceans, ocean.org. Go look for things that you can do. We have like a library of actions that people can take, no matter who they are. You might be the prime minister of a country, or you work in a supermarket cashier and you benefit from Lauren's receipts. But there's something for everybody. Do things. Do things. Actions is what changes things. Talking is good, but action is better.
That's great, Leslie. That's great to leave us with. Thank you so much. And I know Erin has mentioned that we also were going to do the draw before we sign off today. So I will, oh, there's Erin. Wonderful. So Erin, if you want to take us through to that, to the draw.
Yeah, I really have to thank you guys for this amazing panel. Krista, for being an amazing moderator. I love these authentic conversations about how we can make a difference. So I put a challenge out on Twitter to say that everybody who receives a paper receipt should ask, is this EcoChit? And if it is not, then they should ask why. So hopefully we'll see some more businesses requesting your product, Lauren, because I think
absolutely.
That's great. Oh, somebody says they can't see me, you can just hear me. Isn't that lovely? Well, you don't need to see me because I'm going to share my screen and take you through this wheel of winning.
Oh,
somebody
fun.
Tell me out loud. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let's give it a spin. We have a winner. Congratulations, Kate Holder. You are the recipient of a gift package worth $250. I will find you, Kate. I will find you. And that's it. Thank you so much to Vancity, to Krista for hosting our session, to the panelists today. I'm so grateful. And I look forward to seeing you online at the rest of the Seaweed sessions, because as Lassie said, stay curious. And the whole purpose of Seaweed Days is to inspire people to make a positive impact on the planet by inviting more seaweed into their lives. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.